high school teenager Natalee Holloway disappeared in Aruba in 2005, it became a huge story.
He is a killer. He will always be the killer. He will always be now the black mark in Aruba.
Our story begins focusing on 18-year-old Natalee Holloway, a pretty blonde born and raised in Mountain Brook, Alabama, by Mom Beth and Dad Dave. She had a younger brother named Matthew. Her parents divorced when she was young, but she grew up privileged in the wealthy Birmingham suburb. Natalee was a great student and very bright, graduating with honors from Mountain Brook High School on May 24, 2005, just days before embarking on a graduation trip to Aruba. She had a full scholarship to college awaiting her that fall. The well-liked teen was a member of the National Honor Society and danced on a school spirit squad. She seemed to have a bright future ahead. Natalee Holloway was an 18-year-old high school senior from Mountain Brook, Alabama. She disappeared on May 30, 2005, while on a graduation trip in Aruba. Her disappearance sparked an international media frenzy. Natalee had just graduated from high school in Alabama, a few days before going on the fateful trip. She vanished without a trace, and her remains have never been found. The main suspect in Natalee's disappearance is Joran Sloot. He has changed his story many times over the years about what happened, including claiming at one point that he killed her. However, his statements were conflicting, so the full truth of what occurred has never been conclusively confirmed. Natalee's baffling vanishing act and the lack of answers surrounding it became a widely discussed mystery in the United States media for many years. The last place Natalee was seen was leaving a bar called Carlos and Charlie's in a car with Dutch resident Joran Sloot and Surinamese brothers Deepak and Sadish Kalpoe. She failed to arrive for her flight back home the next morning. Immediately after Natalee missed her flight home, her mother Beth Twitty flew by private jet with friends and husband George Jug Twitty to Aruba to search for answers. Within just 4 hours of arriving on the island, Beth supposedly already knew the name and address of Joran Sloot, the main suspect last seen driving off with her daughter. Beth claimed she got his name from the Holiday Inn night manager, who allegedly recognized Joran on security footage. Beth Twitty went with 2 Aruban police officers to the Sloot home to demand answers about her daughter. Joran first denied even knowing Natalee's name, but Deepak Kalpoe was also present and backed up Joran's next story, that they drove Natalee to see sharks at the California Lighthouse area of Arashi Beach, then dropped her at her hotel around 2 a.m. at her own request. Joran said Natalee fell exiting their car, but refused help. He stated that as they drove off, Natalee was approached by a dark-skinned man wearing a security guard-style black shirt. Search efforts to find Natalee Holloway began right away after her disappearance. Hundreds of volunteers from both Aruba and the United States joined the search. In the first days, the Aruban government even gave thousands of civil servants the day off work so they could help look for Natalee. Beth Twitty was provided free housing initially at the Holiday Inn, where coincidentally she stayed in the very same room her daughter had stayed in on the trip. Beth later moved to stay at the presidential suite of the nearby Wyndham Hotel. On June 5th, Aruban police detained 2 former hotel security guards named Nick John and Abraham Jones on suspicion of murder and kidnapping Natalee. The 2 men worked at the Allegro Hotel, which was closed for renovations at the time. On June 9th, Joran Sloot and the Kalpoe brothers themselves were arrested on suspicion of kidnapping and murdering Holloway. Aruban law allowed investigators to make arrests based on strong suspicion. Police soon detained more suspects, including a disc jockey and even Joran's father, Polis Sloot. But all suspects ended up being released later in June due to lack of evidence. During questioning, the detained men changed their stories multiple times. Joran now claimed he left Natalee alone on the beach, and she was later driven off by the Kalpoe brothers instead. But police doubted that latest alibi. On July 4th, the Dutch Air Force used 3 special F-16 planes to aid the search for Holloway, but found nothing. In March 2006, it was reported that satellite photos were being compared to recent aircraft photos to try to spot any shifted ground that could be Holloway's burial site. In August 2006, the Kalpoe brothers were rearrested along with another new suspect named Freddie Arambatsis. Arambatsis was accused of past inappropriate behavior with an underage girl involving Joran Sloot and the Kalpoes. But police later admitted the Kalpoe rearrests were just an unsuccessful attempt to pressure them into confessing about Holloway's fate. On September 3rd, 2006, the 4 detained suspects were released by a judge, despite prosecution attempts to keep them held longer. They were released on condition they remain available to police. But shortly after, all restrictions on their movements were removed by a Court of Appeals ruling. In months after his release, prime suspect Joran Sloot gave several media interviews explaining his version of events with Natalee. In a notable March 2006 interview on Fox News, Joran said Natalee wanted to have sex with him on the beach, but he did not because he lacked a condom. On May 12, 2007, the Calpo family home was searched by authorities. The Calpo brothers objected to the abrupt search and were briefly detained. Officials took nothing from the home, but prosecutors later indicated the purpose was simply to better understand the circumstances and events surrounding Holloway's presumed offense. In November 2007, Joran van der Sloot and the Calpo brothers were suddenly rearrested again when some kind of new evidence apparently surfaced once more. Joran was detained in Holland and sent back to Aruba. Dave Holloway announced around then a new deep-water search effort for his daughter's remains, but that expensive search found nothing by the time it ended months later due to lack of funds. Soon a judge ordered the Calpo brothers released yet again from custody in Aruba, followed by Joran van der Sloot's release as well, both due to still not enough evidence against them. On December 18, 2007, prosecutors made the frustrating announcement that Holloway's case was officially closed, with no charges filed. In 2008, van der Sloot was caught on video saying he disposed of Holloway's body with a friend's help after she had a seizure, but he later denied it was true. Searches based on his statements found nothing. In 2010, van der Sloot tried to extort $250,000 from Holloway's family by promising information about her death. He took $25,000 but provided false information. Also, in 2010, van der Sloot murdered Stephany Flores in Peru. He was convicted and sentenced to 28 years. In prison, he admitted to the extortion attempt on the Holloways. In 2011, Holloway was legally declared dead, though her body was never found. Over the years, various searches and leads led nowhere. In 2023, van der Sloot was extradited to the US to face extortion and wire fraud charges related to the Holloway case. He confessed in writing to killing Holloway in Aruba by bludgeoning and drowning her. And so after nearly 3 years of searches, arrests, and releases, Natalee Holloway's disturbing disappearance came to end. If you liked this crazy crime story, hit subscribe and the bell to see more videos from Crime Chronicles.